As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now. And what's up, Obscurians? It's time for another episode of Obscurity Now, the show that takes a look at weird and almost forgotten pieces of media. Then we decide if they should be remembered for all of human history or tossed into the dark void of obscurity, never to be heard from again. My name is Steve, and with me, it's Yahel's doppelganger from an alternate Earth. It's
Comrade Yahel. How are you doing, Steven?
Oh, you know me. I'm just a hero of the people here. I serve the state in any way it needs to be served, and I mean any way. How are you?
You're feeding the grain to the people, or whatever that rap song said.
Whoa.
Russian rap song.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, man, that was funny that they thought a need to include rap. It's like we really have to sell that this is an alternate communist version of.
I love those little kind of details. You know, it actually, that I know we'll get to it later, but that whole scene in part 2 where they're watching like the different channels in Soviet-controlled America.
100% sold it. It was awesome. It
reminded me of RoboCop.
Oh, you beat me to it. We need to have like a RoboCop like connection bumper at some point. But before we let's jump too far into sliders. Everything going well for you? You have a good week?
I had quite a productive week. Worked on the video, recorded the on-camera segments. I've been piecing those together. I'd be further along, but I was sick for a couple days. But I'm back, Steve, using Prime Earth's superior American medicine.
American? That's the first time I've ever heard you have an accent of any kind.
I know, it slipped in there. Even I'm surprised. Maybe you traveled to an alternate Earth, Steve, where my Hispanic accent I never lost it. That
would be so weird. And since we're on the subject, I didn't put this in the format because I thought of it after you sent, like, so all right, let's say we had ourselves a little slider timer, which, all right, just to clarify everything here, dear listener, we are covering what started out as a Fox show back in the 90s, the show Sliders, starring Jerry O'Connell and a few other people that we're going to get to here in a second. And basically, it's a show where they would go through wormholes to get to alternate versions of Earth, more or less. So I would like to ask you, Agent Velasquez, what alternate Earth would you like to go to? Just any kind of difference at all, any kind.
Oh man, one where you can't leave a comment on everything on the internet. Maybe one without any kind of social media, which has unfortunately, it's led people to believe that everyone's opinion matters and is important and is equal. And you know what, Steve? It really doesn't. I pine for the days of the early 90s, before the internet became as ubiquitous as it is now. And there was really not much in terms of social media where, your opinions, you had to get them from TV or generally more educated people, a newspaper. You couldn't. It was more difficult for the Andrew Tates of the world and flim flam artists, if you will, to get their stranglehold on people outside of religious people, of course. And they always. God always finds a way to get his money from suckers, but
it's a gift and a curse, of course. I think it's ultimately up to the individual not to be flim-flammed by the flim-flam artist, whether it be from social media and or a mega church. I forgot. I was gonna say. Oh yeah, the thing that I hate most about social media is that it gives people. I think it gives a lot of people free pass to run their mouth because they've never been punched in the face before.
Yeah, you
If
sound like Bubba from
yeah.
our Team 3D Academy Wrestling days or Dudley
Well,
Boys Wrestling.
he's really rubbed off on me, unfortunately, over the years. No, no, I mean, I don't know. I just think like people would be a lot more. They wouldn't talk to you like face to face the way they do over social media,
Right, right.
basically.
Yeah,
But
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, I mean that's a podcast for another time. I was gonna say I want to go to an alternate Earth where Ultraverse and Malibu Comics were successful.
I like how neither of us is like, I want an alternate Earth where there's world peace or no diseases. We're just like want our own personal lives to be slightly more convenient is all.
Of course, of course. I would love our former band Estancia to be as big as Nickelback, even bigger.
By the way, we have Ken Williams in the chat. He said that Jesus needs that fourth private jet.
No, yes,
So,
he does. He does.
Yes. And if you want to donate, Ken, you can do that at Reptilian Me. You can't
well,
do
just
it.
go buy comics. You can go to shoot. What is it? It's a
You
Big
have the
Cartel.
Big Cartel.
Yeah, bigcartel.reptilianmedia.com and just buy as many comics as you think Jesus needs to rise from the dead. Yeah,
Yes,
there you go.
destroy the trees that Jesus put here.
Any other alternate Earths you'd like to go to before we jump into sliders?
I'm sure I'll think of some along the way, but I don't want to hold up the podcast. I guess it would be nice to be on an Earth where people treat each other with kindness, and that there's no diseases and no one's hungry. That would be nice.
That sounds good. Also, no
religion.
No, no more sequels, prequels, and remakes. That'd be great. Just new shit for a while. I mean,
I'm gonna place a priority on no disease, peace, and no religion. Over no sequels and prequels.
Let me get back to you on that.
Because see, I'm assuming, Steve, that in this universe where everyone treats each other with kindness, there's already no prequels, and no one's getting worked up over them.
So you're just talking about
be kind to each other.
Straight up utopia is what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, well,
I want to live in a world where Star Trek is real.
I want to live in a world where I have to use 3 seashells to wipe my ass. I mean,
I want to live in a world where my Star Trek TNG costume is my uniform.
Yeah, I want to live in a world where I could cosplay as Prime from the Ultraverse, and everyone knows who I am.
Steve, you got to aim higher than this.
No, that's what I want. Screw everything else and everybody else. I want the Ultraverse to reign supreme.
Why don't we slide into our discussion and review of sliders?
All right, we'll table this for now, and we'll come back to it at a later date. All right, here we go.
Welcome to your feature presentation.
I have to tell you though, Yahel, the episode that I watched, or that we watched, obviously, about a possible alternate universe where the U.S. was living under communist rule. I mean, some people just call it...
the entire Earth was under Soviet control.
And I mean, some people just say that that's regular California, but anyway, it's got me living in fear. Yahel, is what I'm trying to say. I'm afraid that the commies are going to come back at any moment and take over, and then we'll have, we won't own anything. I mean, the corporations, they're trying to destroy physical media. You can't even buy physical games at, Target and Walmart anymore. I mean, I'm scared. Do you have anything that could help me with that?
Yeah, I do, Steve. I brought a piece of 100% cotton from the 90s. The No Fear Shirt of the Week has returned, Stephen.
Oh, I thought I had that over here on my OBS. So hold on, let me check and take a look at it. Oh, yes, all right, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it's the No Fear Shirt of the Week. Take it away.
There are lessons to be learned from competition, but fear is not one of them. No fear.
No fear. Wow.
I have found in my no fear research, which is how I'm living my 40s, that there are a lot of no fear shirts that basically is just rewording no fear, like
Hmm.
stretching it out into a long sentence. And this is one of those examples.
You ever
So yeah,
you ever
meta.
wonder? I'm
What's
sorry.
that?
Go ahead.
I was just saying that the people at No Fear had no fear of derivative meta shirts.
Yeah, I just wonder if like the whole No Fear brand was just built on a guy who's just like doodling on his like notebook, like writing out I don't know, phrases for stickers that he'd put on a skateboard or something, and then he's like, I could make an entire, fashion line out of these two words, like, and then as you said, just sort of built off of it from there, and I don't know.
You know what I was thinking this week? Because I saw a guy at the gym wearing one of these, not a No Fear shirt, but have you seen these grunt style shirts?
I think I may have.
They're one of these like weird paramilitary clothing brands that's,
Hmm.
become popular with a certain sect of the insecure segment of the population. But,
Hmm.
I was just thinking these No Fear shirts, they're kind of like the modern equivalent is kind of like, these like uber patriotic shirts that have some, I'm a badass because I got a big gun. And then there's always like an American flag on the sleeve. It's kind of the equivalent of that.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Are you saying that might need to become a new segment?
Maybe I'll have to look at it because I feel like there's a lot of No Fear shirts, and like I've told you before, I'm gonna have to start pulling like some from the off brand. So yeah, maybe.
Okay. All right. Well, once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is your No Fear shirt of the week. You take the words of Yahel, or the words of the shirt that he spoke, and breathe it in and let it supercharge you for the week. I guess. You're
Well, maybe not this
welcome.
shirt. It looks pretty raggedy. The
Yeah,
shirt I
man,
found.
that's got to be an OG one that someone found like under their bed, like from the actual
It-
'90s. Yeah.
it's been through some things. I would not run this shirt under a black light based on some of the stains on it.
Oh yeah, total Rorschach test right there.
Yeah. I don't like the visual. Let's move on.
All right, so say goodbye to the No Fear shirt of the week, and we are gonna say hello to Sliders and the Obscuritron here.
Sliders.
Yes, thank you. That's the one thing I do feel. I don't know about you, but I did not get the Sliders theme when I was watching. It was just they just sort of jumped right into it. Did yours have the theme?
What did you watch it on?
I found it.
Oh, well, that must be why, Stephen.
Hmm.
If you watch it on, I'm kind of glad you brought this up because the show can be watched on Peacock. I'm not sure if it's on the free version of Peacock or even if they still have the free version. I think they do. But you can also watch it free on Vudu. It'll have ads. Or if you have a Roku, you can watch it on the Roku channel for free with ads. I actually watched it on Peacock, and I watched part two a second time on Roku.
Hmm.
And if you've got Roku, I'd recommend watching it there. There's less ad breaks. Um, and they do both Peacock and Roku do have the intro for the show on
Nice.
episode two because the pilot is at least on those services put as episode pilot, episode one, pilot, episode part two, or whatever. Yeah. So you didn't hear the theme.
I did not, but I remember the theme. I remember it was good. And of course, yes, just like you said at the end, they always go sliders. And
Yeah.
that used to sit with me from one week to the next.
The one thing I missed though that they isn't in the pilot is that later on, I think it might be like a few episodes into it,
Hmm.
when they go to a commercial break, they do the sliders
Yeah,
whisper
I remember
like between
that.
each commercial break, which
Oh,
I don't know, it's so unnecessary and stupid, but something about it was just like I don't know. It was cool at least back then in the
no, it is
90s.
cool. Absolutely. I mean, we remember it to this day. So
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
it did its job.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And so we'll just dive right into sliders here. So we are reviewing or discussing, if you will, Sliders episode 1 and 2, which is basically just the Sliders pilot. When you put it together, it basically runs about an hour and a half. So What is your history with Sliders? I assume you watched it. Do you remember, like, did you watch it from the beginning? And do you remember when you stopped?
Yeah, I watched Sliders when it was airing on TV, but I didn't finish it then. I think maybe I didn't know that Sci-Fi Channel ended up picking up like after season 3 or something like that. I think there's like 5 seasons altogether. And then like I don't know, maybe like a decade ago, I watched the whole thing.
Oh, nice.
And I will say, the quality it gets a little weird. They introduce like these guys called the Cro-Mags, which I don't think that they were aliens.
Great hardcore band. East Coast
Right,
hardcore
right.
band. Yeah.
I thought, what's funny is I thought like I was wrong about their name being the Cro-Mags because I was like, no, I must be confusing them for the punk band, but no, they're called the Cro-Mags, and I think they're basically still they're not aliens. They're just like how intelligent life evolved on a parallel Earth. So instead of humans, it's basically like a Star Trek style alien or whatever, but they're not aliens. They're just what evolved on a different Earth, and they start like chasing the Sliders. And I know like later on, like Jerry O'Connell's real life brother joins the
Oh,
show. And
I remember that. That was I think a time when I sort of tried to jump back or slide back into Sliders, if you
yeah,
will.
yeah,
It was just so
yeah.
weird.
Like they switch around the main Sliders. I think Jerry O'Connell. No, I think he is there the whole time. I know
No,
he's at the
no.
last episode.
The only one who's there throughout the entire run of the
It's Rembrandt.
series is, you got it. Yep, Rembrandt.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. I do. I feel like Jerry O'Connell does come back for the final episode, if I remember correctly. Because I have a particular memory of a scene in the final episode. But I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, even though the quality drops, um, I do still think it. Well, I know I'm kind of giving it away here, but I do still think it's worth sticking with it.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely intrigued. I've never watched the whole series. I definitely started, yeah, with the pilot as it was airing. I remember this pilot quite well, and watching probably the majority of the first season. I remember when I really started to like sort of lose interest was when they, spoiler alert for like a 20-year-old show, when they killed off Professor Arturo, or I mean, I just called him Sala because he's Sala from Indiana Jones. Because he was like my favorite character, and when they killed him off, I was like, "What? Like, what are you doing?" And then I came back later when Carrie Wurr was in there. We already talked about in previous episodes how they did their Species ripoff when Carrie Wurr gets taken over by some alien and then she acts like Species. Remember the movie Species?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, I guess they were just like, oh, we need a girl who is slightly more attractive than the regular one, so they threw her in there or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that when they brought her in, and her acting was not great.
Oh,
I mean, you could kind of,
she's never been known as a good actress.
you
She
could
got
kind of
by
say,
upon other reasons.
yeah. I mean, you could kind of, I think out of the group, Sabrina Lloyd, who plays Wade, she's probably the weakest actor. But I do remember her, again, I haven't seen this in like 8, 10 years. I do remember her acting improves, though, as the show goes on. And in the chat, Ken Williams pointed out that the Cro-Mags didn't die. He said the Cro-Mags didn't die out or lose to evolution. Yeah, they're like derived. They also came from primates or something, from what I remember. He also said in the chat, I saw the first 3 or 4 episodes when we moved overseas for a year, came back in season 3 and thought it was a spinoff. Yeah, because there's like all new people. And like, I do remember the more we're talking about this, the Cro-Mags, like they actually come early on, like in season 2. And I remember them being kind of more primate-ish, more ape-like. And then later they're like in season 4 and 5, they come back and they're basically like Nazis. And they have like advanced like craft and all this stuff. But anyways, I don't want to give away too much in case anybody wants to watch the show. In fact, I say we should not give them any more spoilers about the characters.
Okay, yeah, sure. We'll just stick to what we watched. And yeah, as Yahel said, there are 5 seasons of Sliders. It lasted 87 episodes, ran from 1995 to 2000. The pilot, which we are about to discuss, premiered March 22nd, 1995, and here is a synopsis for it and the series. A boy genius and his comrades travel to different parallel universes, trying to find their way back home. And this was directed by Andy Tennant, and he directed Briscoe County Jr., Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, and Parker Lewis Can't Lose. And if you're interested in reviews on those previous shows, we've already covered them. This was written by the creators, Tracy Torme and Robert K. Weiss, and they wrote all 87 episodes together. Tracy Torme, he also worked on, he wrote the screenplay for the movie Fire in the Sky. What are your thoughts on Fire in the Sky? You ever watched that movie?
Yeah, that's the one with the alien abduction, right? I remember it was like
Allegedly
a big deal when it
based
came out.
on a true story, yeah.
I remember liking it,
Mhm.
but I don't think I've seen it since it came out. So
Right, that might be one to throw in on the
Yeah.
list.
because I remember the scene where the guy is like on the table on the alien spaceship. I remember that scene being pretty
pretty
creepy.
intense, sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and intense. That's actually a great way to describe it.
Mhm.
That's how my lovers describe me.
He lived in a tent, everyone. But
No, intense.
I
Oh,
know.
I see. I see.
zing,
I have to
zing.
quit the podcast. Excuse me.
Tracy Torme unfortunately passed away just a few weeks ago, January 4th, 2024. Getting that news actually prompted me to suggest to Yahel that we finally cover Sliders, so here we are.
It's been on our list for a very long time.
hmm He also did 19 episodes of Saturday Night Live. And his writing partner, Robert K. Weiss, aside from Sliders, he doesn't do a ton of writing. Mostly a producer. He produced the movie Tommy Boy, Weird Science, the TV show, which one day we're going to cover, and the Blues Brothers movie. And aside from writing the 87 episodes of Sliders, he's credited as doing the story for an episode of Police Squad. And I also wanted to include one of the executive producers is legendary director John Landis, which I feel like he was also a producer on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. I just feel like his name showed up in some weird place previously, but he directed Blues Brothers, Animal House, and American Werewolf in Paris. And I guess later he decided he wanted to try to produce some TV. So here we are. Who are some of the actors who worked in this pilot?
Well, before I get to that, I do want to talk about Tracy Torme on Star Trek for just a second. He was worked on The Next Generation for the first couple of seasons. He was like a story editor mostly the first season. He did, however, write this episode called The Big Goodbye, and it's like the first, the holodeck has malfunctioned episode. Like that's his. So he's the one that kind of came up with that, trope in Star Trek about the holodeck, going awry.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's actually a pretty fun episode. Some people don't like holodeck episodes, and those people are wrong. But I forgive them, for they know not what they do.
I don't mind a holodeck episode.
Me either. I think they're fun, man.
They are fun.
Anyways, and then like in season 2, he wrote a few episodes, but he wrote them under like pseudonyms for some reason. But he wrote the Royale, which is like a really fun one where there's like a casino in space. It's on this planet. It's the only thing that exists is a hotel/casino.
Nice.
It's a real quirky episode. But anyways, moving along to the people who acted in Sliders. I'm going to kind of jump around here a little bit. I know normally I go with the top billed cast, but I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to start off with, hold on.
Judge Wapner. Please start off with
Judge Wapner is here as Judge Wapner from the People's Court. I actually wasn't going to mention him in the acting credits, but I was going to mention him in part 2. But yeah, Judge Wapner is here. His bailiff is here. Although the bailiff isn't there. But Doug Llewellyn is there, the interviewer.
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, they make a pretty fun appearance here. We've got Linda Henning, no relation to Kurt Hennig slash Mr. Perfect. Linda Linda plays Quinn's mom, Mrs. Mallory. She's in only 5 episodes though of the show. She was I want to say the other thing she was in that was kind of like what she was known for was I know she was like on Mork and Mindy, the Petticoat Junction. That's what I'm looking for. Where she was on 222 episodes of whatever that is. I've heard the name before, but
yeah,
I'm
some
not
like I don't know, cheesy 70s comedy. I think I don't know.
sure. Then we've got Sabrina Lloyd, who I mentioned earlier. She played Wade Wells. She hasn't acted or she hasn't been in anything in like 10 years. So her last thing was in 2013, but she was kind of working somewhat regularly up until then. She was in a bunch of episodes of Numbers, Ed. She was in a movie about me called My Sexiest Mistake back in 2004.
Jesus.
She was on Sports Night for like 45 episodes. So, I mean, she did some stuff. Then we've got Cleveland Derricks, who plays Rembrandt. He hasn't acted since 2011.
Wait. Say the full name because I didn't remember this at all.
Cleveland. C-L-E.
No. Rembrandt. His middle name, like his stage name.
Oh, Rembrandt Crying Man.
Brown. Yeah, I forgot all about that. That was hilarious.
I remember all about the Crying Man thing too. Yeah. But yeah, he's a composer, actor. Obviously, he has a twin brother who acts also. And I don't know if you remember this, but whenever they have like a Rembrandt double, they use his twin brother.
Yeah, I read that in the trivia. Yeah.
Yeah, and they look, I mean, obviously identical twins look alike, but they really look alike. Like
now, how weird would it have been if there was one episode where Jerry and his brother were there and Rembrandt and his brother were there? It would be like, whoa, I'm seeing double here.
Well, there might be, but Jerry O'Connell's brother, they do look a lot alike, but they're not twins.
Right.
I think it's like his younger brother. But I do remember when they had the Rembrandt double scenes. I didn't know that they were, I was like 15 or something or 16. I wasn't really paying attention to credits at that time. And I didn't realize that they were using a second person or, like a real person for his double. And I was just like, wow, man, the Rembrandt double scenes always look so good.
Yeah.
Wow, how did they get them to touch? Like all kinds of stuff.
I just love you like, I wasn't paying attention to credits back then. I was chasing tail.
I like the casting on the show, but sure. I'm almost like surprised they didn't try to cast like more twins on the show.
Yeah, right.
In the main cast, but a lot. I mean, on some episodes, like the doubles that they find on other Earths, they don't interact with our prime Earth actors, so I guess it's not as important. But in the chat, Ken Williams said, "Too bad Linda Hamilton didn't guest star and have her twin come along." I did not know Linda Hamilton had a twin.
Yeah, I don't think I knew that either. Well,
anyways,
man.
So
yeah, thanks for telling us, Ken.
So, like I said, Cleveland Derricks plays Rembrandt Crying Man Brown. And now I'm gonna go into we've got Roger Cross. Now he's not a major character on here. In fact, we don't see him until part 2. He plays Wilkins. He's the Soviet Earth's guy that works in the that's dating Wells in the underground American resistance. He's actually in another sci-fi show I really liked called Dark Matter. I don't know. Did you ever watch that?
I did not.
It's a pretty fun show. And it's crazy. Like this guy, like he's one of these guys that like barely ages. So like I was like, that can't be the same guy. But yeah, he looks almost identical. It's nuts. But anyways, more importantly, Steven, he also, like Tracy Torme, worked on Star Trek. He was in one episode of Star Trek Enterprise as Tret. Hold on. We've got John Rhys Davies up next. He's been in a million things. He's been in he was like in the Temple of Doom, right? The Last Crusade, I think he's also in. And I know he's in the most recent Indiana Jones movie as well.
He's actually not in the Temple of Doom. That's like the only... He's in Raiders and he's in
That's
Last
what it
Crusade.
is. You're right.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Raiders. Thank you. He was also, I don't know if you were aware of this, Steven, in 2 episodes of Star Trek Voyager. Did you know who he plays?
No, I don't know. Tell me.
I can't believe this, Steven. He plays Leonardo da Vinci.
Why would I know that?
There's a hilarious episode, like the second one he's in, where I think IMDb is wrong, because I think he's in 3 episodes, but there's one episode where he gets like the holographic doctor's mobile emitter, and now he's like out in the real world as Leonardo da Vinci, and he has to and he helps like Captain Janeway solve like this problem. They go on this adventure. It's ridiculous. It's good fun, and like everything that he's in, he's great. He's actually one of my favorite actors. Like, I love when he pops up in something and the guy is still working very steadily. As well, he should. I think a lot of people know him from Lord of the Rings. He's like the
dwarf.
The
Gimli,
dwarf. Yes,
heavy half. Gimli, heavy half.
Yes. Then finally, we've got Jerry O'Connell, who plays, of course, the lead, Quinn Mallory. These days, and he's been in quite a few things as well. I remember when he was in Joe's apartment.
Yeah, man, we should cover that. I don't think I've seen like bits and pieces of that, but never all the way through.
I remember watching like the MTV. I think they were like shorts or something.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
But yeah. Anyways, he is currently on Star Trek Lower Decks.
Oh, I was about to. It's weird. Like, have you seen some of the movies he's been in lately? He always plays like a sleazebag, like producer, director. Yeah, it's always a sleazebag for some reason. It's like, Jerry,
I think it.
Baby, why?
I don't know. I guess he's kind of got that face, maybe. I don't know.
But he was like, he started out as like the most virtuous of the kids in Stand By Me, and then here he is, fresh-faced, super intelligent science kid, and then I guess he got sick of all that. He's like, I really want to play some sleaze bags.
Well, maybe he's trying to show his versatility.
I guess. I mean,
he's in Billions also, and I think he plays a sleazebag in Billions as well.
It's like him and Gary Busey's son. They're always vying for the sleazebag roles for some reason.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned Stand By Me, because also in Stand By Me was Will Wheaton, who went on to play Wesley Crusher in Star Trek The Next Generation. Why are you rolling your eyes, Steven? And hold on. And now Will Wheaton hosts the show for Paramount called The Ready Room, where they basically every week they interview somebody from whatever Star Trek show's currently on the air at that time. So they've reunited on there and talked a little bit about Stand By Me, but also Jerry O'Connell's wife, Rebecca Romaine, she plays Una, which is like the first officer on Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Wow, we've got so many Star Trek connections. I can't contain my excitement.
I almost had a release something that Mike because it's something that Mike said in our wrestling group chat one day. He said that he had a oh my god, what was it, like a massive release of stagnant energy or something. Is how he described like one of his orgasms. It was actually even worse, whatever he said. But it was something like that. I'll look it up. But that is our cast and our Star Trek connections for Sliders.
I mean, so I didn't realize that Jerry O'Connell was married to Rebecca Romaine. It's like, so I guess that if anyone has the sort of theory that Jerry O'Connell is just taking these sleazebag roles so he can, ogle naked actresses and fondle them or whatever, doesn't really make sense. But, yeah. I mean, hey, whatever. I'm not here to kink shame.
Yeah, and before you were on the bumper, it was, I almost had an incredible release of stagnant energy.
All right, here it is.
Oh no! We've just entered another Star Trek connection.
Who talks like that?
Mike Labaska, Johnny Armani. He got a part in a Hallmark movie. It's a SAG role.
Oh, nice. Good for him.
The movie's called like something like the Secret Life of a Dominatrix.
Well, if once it's out, we are going to review that. We're going to review the crap out of it.
Yeah, and I'll bring him on as a guest. In the chat, Ken Williams clarified regarding Linda Brown. Linda Hamilton's twin. Not to derail, but in the cut scenes in I guess he means like scenes that were cut from Terminator 2, she was a reflection in a mirror at the end.
Wow. Well,
they probably
good.
had the camera like move around or something.
Sure. Well, good for her.
He also said everything comes back to Star Trek. Hard to find something that isn't. I
have a theory there, Ken, and listeners, that in every like internet duo, be it YouTube or podcasting, there has to be at least one Star Trek fanatic. I mean, look at Mike and Jay of Red Letter Media. I mean, Mike is the Star Trek fan, and Jay could give two shits. So it makes the world go round or something.
I love how like Jay has begrudgingly come to know some Star Trek.
Yeah, it is funny.
Facts.
Yeah, it is. All right.
What's the other guy's name? I can't remember the third guy.
Rich Evans?
Rich, yeah. Rich is kind of a fan too, but
obviously he loves it. Yeah.
Like Rich loves it. Mike is more like me, obsessed with it.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so jumping into sliders here on a black screen, we see the words "in a San Francisco basement." And then through the scan lines of what's supposed to be a video camera, and man, did they hammer those scan lines on there. A young man with long hair is very excited. He's sort of pacing back and forth and talking about a weird thing that came out of nowhere, and then he's interrupted when his mom yells down to him, and he looks at the camera and he's like, "Oh, I think I knocked out the power again." And obviously this is our hero Quinn, the boy genius, played by Jerry O'Connell. And just sort of like a quick little cold open to make you want to continue checking out sliders here, and I think it does that. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. There's a really nice job of establishing the show. Steve, real quick, because since you're not gonna I'm sure it's not in your script or whatever because you didn't see it, but should we talk about the theme song and intro?
Yeah, go for it.
So I like it a lot. The intro has like this really cool thing with like a bunch of like swirling earths, like
I remember
spiraling.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as they come out and. Like it has like Quinn kind of say something like, "Oh, what if you could travel to different Earths, different dimensions, same you but different planets," and like that. And then he says in a really weirdly excited tone of voice, "Well, I found the key." That's the one part that's a little strange. But then the song, it's funny to me that you said you remembered it, because I thought it's just like this weird like techno-esque song, and I think it's very forgettable. It's very 90s. The only thing I remember is that at the very end they whisper sliders.
Right. I mean, that's what I remember. I don't really remember the theme song, to be honest with you. I assume it's composed by Dennis McCarthy, who was credited as who also worked on Star Trek Enterprise and Star Trek Generations.
Voyager, I think, also.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It seems like Fox, I don't know. The 90s was the time of, like, I guess science fiction, if you will. And it's, like, weird because, for the longest time, I was like, ooh, man, I hated the 90s. They suck. But now, here we are 20 years removed from it, and I look back on it, and I was like, there was some good stuff going on back then.
Yeah, there's some decent stuff back then. Steve, I'm so sorry to interrupt once again, and I know that this is going to be a long episode. It already kind of is, but it's already been almost an hour. But I want to let people know there's a website called earthprime.com, and it has the correct episode order. So Fox, as they and many other networks, but Fox was like super guilty of doing this back in the day, they aired the show out of order, particularly in season 1.
Just like Spike TV with Stripperella from last week's episode, which you should check out if you haven't.
But yeah, so if you want to watch Sliders, and I've never watched it in the correct order, but I do remember when I read this, like when I was watching it, that I was like, why are their clothes different at the end of one episode than they are in the first one? The next one they're sliding in, and just there were some continuity things. And yeah, they have the correct order on Earth Prime that it was supposed to be shown in. So I highly recommend going there. There's also a bunch of like really neat background information.
Was
like,
there any reason
outsiders.
why they were shown out of order?
I don't know why they were shown out of order in this particular case, but I know that, a lot of times, like if they were on other shows, it's like, oh, well, Sweeps is coming up, so
Right.
we think that like episode 7 is gonna,
That's what I
do
thought.
better than episode 4, so we're gonna, put episode 7 at the 4th week,
Gotcha.
stuff like that. But also that earthprime.com, it has like you can download like the Sliders comics from there, which I didn't know were a thing.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
They were put out by some company called Acclaim, like some indie label.
Oh,
in
I mean,
96.
Acclaim was the video game company, and they bought Valiant Comics back in the day. And that's how Turok got his own game, basically.
Oh, well, maybe it's that same Acclaim.
It is. Trust me, it is.
Oh, okay. Whoa, don't get hot, brother.
Urgh. I'm going to have a release here of what kind of
An
energy?
incredible-
Stagnant energy?
An incredible release of stagnant energy.
Man, yeah, I want to check those out. But yeah, good research there. So jumping back in the show, we see the Sliders logo, or I guess if you're watching on Roku, you get the theme, I would assume. And now we are inside Quinn's bedroom. The camera pans over posters of just regular. It's weird. It's a mix of like, super science geek stuff, but then there's also regular like dude stuff on the wall, like baseball stuff, and he's got a surfboard in there. It's like,
Yeah.
like they really go out of their way to be like, hey, look, this guy's super smart, but he's also a regular guy. But yeah, there's also a telescope, and then there's, for some reason, he has little dinosaur figures on a shelf, and yeah, basically, I just wrote down, I was like, man, Quinn was just into everything, wasn't he? And then we basically land on Quinn. He's asleep on his bed, clothes still on, and a science text on his lap. Did you happen to catch the science text and who wrote it?
No, I didn't.
I don't have the title written down, but it's that guy.
Oh, great. You didn't either.
No, I'm
perfect.
going to tell you, you're going to know the guy because it's from a show that you used to watch when we were roommates. It's that Machicho Kiku guy,
Oh, Michio Kaku. Oh, that's right. He's got, I think the book was Physics of the Future, I think is what he's
Yeah.
reading, something like that. Yeah, because I did recognize the book because I think I used to have that book.
You would, you nerd.
Excuse me for wanting to know about science, Stephen.
Right. No, I support it 200%. All right. So what's
Well,
up?
I'll wait till you get to the character later on.
All right. So his alarm goes off. He shoots up out of bed. He goes downstairs to the kitchen where his TV mom is cooking him breakfast. She tells Quinn he works too much, just like his dead father, and that's what killed him. And he was like, Mom, Dad got hit by a car. And she was like, yeah, but he was driving back from work. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh, the book, by the way, I'm sorry, I said Physics of the Future. It's but that one hadn't come out yet. It's Hyperspace.
Oh, yeah. I could tell the Obscurians were going to be really pissed if you didn't correct that.
I don't want the Michio Kaku Knights to come after us.
Michio Kakians, or yeah, I like yours better. All right, so Quinn, also his mom comments on him wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Basically, they're just trying to establish that Quinn is like sort of like your typical kind of like Doc Brown, if you will, always focusing on his work and not really caring about the other stuff. So he goes into his basement where he watches a video of himself opening a portal. I don't know about you, but I'm always watching videos of myself do things. And him on like the monitor says that maybe it's a gateway to another existence. And again, he's interrupted by his mom asking if he has class today. So Quinn runs back up to the kitchen, grabs some breakfast, kisses mom goodbye, and he's off to the races, if you will. Any comments on that that scene there?
No, I mean, it does a pretty good job of establishing Quinn as a character and also like the whole slide portal thing. It is a little like, telling you instead of showing you a little bit. But I also feel like you kind of almost have to with this kind of show because you this is on a network show, so you kind of have to explain to the audience what parallel universes are, because not everybody watching may have even, been familiar with it. So, I prefer more of show than tell, but I think you kind of have to a little bit.
Yeah, plus they've got a they've got a lot to pack in to their pilot here. And, they're trying to sell this to like stupid executives. So of course they have to explain to the executives, how everything works, because they're
And
usually dumb.
I think they're also trying to use the visual effects for the sliding portal to kind of hook, viewers early on. Because at the time on 90s TV, it was a pretty cool effect.
Oh, absolutely. And we're going to get to it here soon. I mean, you kind of saw it at the beginning through the the blurry lens of the camcorder, but when when they get to it and it's like right there, it looks awesome. But yeah, we'll get there in a sec. So cut to Quinn parks his car and he's got a little shortcut through Golden Gate Park. There is a raving homeless man there, raving against like capitalism and the U.S. and stuff. And he tells Quinn to join the revolution. And Quinn just gives him a nod, and then he makes his way to his college. And now we are inside a classroom, and this is the first time we meet John Rice Davies, a.k.a. Professor Arturo. He's teaching to a near-empty class, asking for answers from bored students that just don't have any answers. And then he notices Quinn doodling a black hole, or not a black hole, but, the portal, the wormhole on his notebook. Basically,
I think they call it a tunnel or something.
Yeah, something like that. And then Quinn exits the class, and his classmates are like, "Oh, gee, that Professor Arturo." I mean, it's not this bad, but like, "Oh, that Arturo's so lame, such a pompous windbag." But Quinn, he's all like, "Oh, but he's so smart, and I read all of his books. He's a genius." And, just showing that, Quinn has reverence for Arturo here.
Yeah,
and
he like really respects him, which pays off. This information pays off later.
On top of it, it shows that even to his students, Quinn is even smarter than they are, or even nerdier, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, and John Rhys Davies, I forgot to mention this earlier, he did all of his stunts, his own stunts in the pilot. He insisted. And apparently he got banged up a few times. Like when he's rolling under a truck later, he ended up like cutting his head on a pipe or something.
I mean, good for him. Although
he does like a front flip into like bushes later on.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, I don't know why he would want to do that, but sure, why not?
Hey, this you're talking about Senator Taggart from Wing Commander 3 and 4, man. This man doesn't play around.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wonder if he actually had his legs sawed off in order to play Gimli Heavyhaft in Lord of the Rings.
Yep, and then he grew them back through just his acting prowess.
Yeah, I mean, he's got so much, he's got so much character in him. He just grew his legs back. I like that. I'm going to believe that to the day I die. All right, so here we go.
Let's move on.
Now cut to, it's called like the Doppler Computer Store. It's more or less, I don't know, kind of like a Best Buy, if you will. And we see Wade, another one of our co-star, Wade Wells, and she is telling these customers that they shouldn't buy this overpriced computer because they don't really need it. Then Quinn shows up and they chat, and then their boss shows up and yells at him for being late. Also yells at Quinn.
Did you catch the boss's name?
I got to be honest, I did not. What was his name?
Well, it's Michael Hurley, and so when Tracy Torme worked at Star Trek, Michael Hurley, the Next Generation, Maurice Hurley was running TNG, and Maurice was kind of known for being a bit of an asshole. Mm-hmm. He was one of the executive producers, and a lot of people didn't like him, and Maurice Hurley ends up leaving after season 2 of TNG. But yeah, Tracy Torme basically wrote this guy, Michael Hurley, as a bit of a dig at Maurice Hurley.
Nice. Oh,
yeah,
that's a fun little fact. All right, so cut to Quinn returns to his awesome basement/lab. He looks at a math equation on a chalkboard, and I don't mean just 2 + 2. It's like this massive equation that takes up the whole board. that he
Yeah,
can't.
it's a physics equation.
And he
Which, if
can't
you read Hyperspace or Physics of the Future or any of Michio Kaku's works, Stephen, you would have recognized. But I digress.
Sorry, I'm more of a shoot, I can't remember that guy's name.
There's drawings in it like your comic books, Stephen.
Wow, I'll have to check it out. So, hey, I'm a product of Florida schools. Don't get mad at me. So yeah, there's no answer, and he's like, he can't figure it out. He talks to his cat, just like I imagine Yahel talks to his cat when he's at home alone.
Yep.
He says he's missing one piece of the puzzle. He watches another video of himself, which I also imagine Yahel does when he's at home alone. He starts talking.
So, videos of me talking to my cat.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. He watches another video of himself, and this is where he starts talking about the timing device, so things can return from the portal. And my question to you is like, is the timing device, like when you think about Sliders, is that like one of those great sort of TV props that sort of sticks out to you, or is it just sort of like a meh kind of thing?
I mean, at the time it was really cool. Looking back, it's kind of like looks a little silly, but I do remember that they get different versions of the timer later that looks a little bit, I don't know, just sleeker and cooler or whatever.
Yep. There are 3 different versions. I have the 3 timers here in the Obscuritron for our viewers. The first one was made from a Motorola cell phone, the Micro Tech.
But it makes sense, right? Because Quinn doesn't have. It's a prototype, kind of a thing. What's he going to do? He's going to use whatever he's got around from the 90s.
And then they have a new one that came a few seasons later. And it doesn't say what that one. Oh no, it was supposedly made from like a remote control from like a TV, basically. And then the last one, I know we have a lot of retro gaming enthusiasts that listen/watch us. So get your boners ready. It was made from a modified Sega Genesis controller. Oh my god!
Yeah, the curved one. Yeah. And it's funny that I'm kind of glad you brought up the controllers, but there's an episode that I just remembered where they slide into an Earth that looks like it's the 1950s, and they're like, "Oh God, did we travel back through time? Is that a thing we can do now?" Because they always are like in whatever current time it is.
Sure.
And what this Earth, what it turns out is, it's still the current time, like it's still the same year of 1995 or whatever, but their technology on this Earth just progressed slower than all the other Earths that they had visited, and like their timer is broke, and the technology to fix it doesn't even exist.
Right. I think I remember that one.
Yeah, and that might be where they got like one of the new remotes from or whatever. But in the chat,
Ken says the release. I'm glad Ken is here. He's always sharing our tweets on Twitter and liking them.
Thank you, Ken. You're a sweetheart.
And I know he was when I posted that we were doing Sliders, he was really excited about it. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. Jumping back into Sliders here. Let's see. So basically, Quinn, he films a new video, saying he's going to send his cat Schrodinger into the void, but then...
Or he thought about it.
Right. He thought about it, and he's like, oh, I knew I couldn't do that, and had to send himself. And Schrodinger's cat. Surely a simpleton such as yourself knows about Schrodinger's cat.
Isn't it Schrodinger's?
Schrodinger, well, whatever. Tomato, right?
That Florida education art at work.
All right, so he decides himself. He sets the timer, the cool little, it's almost like the flux capacitor of Sliders, if you will.
Yeah, it has a similar display.
He leaves a very heartfelt video to his mom, telling her like to relax and that he loves her and that he'll be fine. He opens the portal, and man, do we finally get an awesome like full frame shot of the portal. I mean, you already waxed about it earlier, but how awesome is the portal?
Yeah, I mean, even today it looks pretty good.
I love how they do the 360 pan around.
Yeah, I was just going to say he like walks around the portal, and the camera tracking is really good on this. There's a later scene where there's like the doubles of Quinn's character, and the camera tracking's a little janky in a couple parts on the green screen version of Quinn. But yeah, looks awesome. Yeah.
I agree, and I love and then he goes inside, and it's filled
Doesn't
with
look as awesome on
it's
the
filled
inside.
with 90s CGI straight out of the Lawnmower Man, another movie
This
that
is like
we
a Babylon 5
Yeah.
effect inside the tunnel. It's strange because at this point, so I think I know why they did it like this. So at this point, Star Trek Deep Space Nine is already on the air, and when they go through a wormhole all the time, that's a big part of the show, and their wormhole looks probably more like how you would expect them to do it and be able to do it in the 90s, where it looks kind of like ethereal, and it doesn't look like a solid piece of Play-Doh, which is what this looks like you're
Yes, it
inside a
does.
Play-Doh tunnel or something.
Right.
And I think they were just like, oh well, Babylon. Oh, and Babylon 5 had the jump gates, and they also went through like a tunnel thing. So I think they were like just trying to make it look different. And I think making it solid was, with the technology that they had at the time, the TV budget, it's probably all that they could do. But I'm pretty sure it ends up looking different later on in the series.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing about Sliders, at least that I was reading, is that after it was canceled by Fox, things got worse for them, at least like money wise. So,
Of course.
you said that you jumped back in at some point and things were looking bad. I mean, that was why, and then it got picked back up by Sci-Fi. I mean, I don't know if they ever had the budget that they had at the beginning here, but I mean, we could only hope that the technology was there to make things look a little better. But I remember there were episodes when you would never even see the wormhole. You would just hear it, and there'd be like wind blowing in their face, and then they'd jump off frame. Like, even back then, I was like, oh, that's lame. I didn't get to see the wormhole. Like, I really liked that wormhole.
But yeah, and actually I just looked, and yeah, there are different. It does look better, and more like what you'd expect later on.
But I mean,
It looks way better later on.
I
Actually,
mean, at this point, the idea of a wormhole filled with 90s CGI, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
yeah. I mean, it's fine. I think part of the reason why it looks quote unquote so bad is that like the opening of the wormhole itself looks so good and so cool.
Right.
Like if you could put that effect on a TV show today and it would be fine.
Sure.
But once they're inside, and you know what? They just should never have had them show the inside of the worm, because there's really no need. All you have to do is show them going in the opening and then coming out the other end.
Right. I guess they really wanted to flex their effects like at the time. I mean, they're trying to sell this show to executives who, are graduates of the Florida education system. You could only assume. And, they really, want them to buy the show Sliders. So they did as much as they could. And that included 90s CGI inside the wormhole. All right, now moving on. So he steps inside, and then he basically ends up back where he left. I guess he assumes that it didn't work. So he gets in his car. He listens to what sounds like to me to be like Coast to Coast AM. You ever listen to Coast to Coast?
I think I did a few times, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's any basically radio broadcast. And then he almost has a car accident because he has indeed slid into an alternate world where red means go and green means stop.
Right.
And weren't they also driving on the wrong side of the road as well?
I believe so, that they were driving on the left side of the road.
And then there was also stuff on here that says Americans are crossing the border illegally to get into Mexico.
Yeah.
And he also sees a billboard for Elvis Live. So in this alternate Earth, Elvis is still alive. And for some reason, the stoplights are inverted. So Quinn returns home, and his mom is seeing the gardener. Another just sort of weird, like random thing. And she's pregnant. Then his timer goes off, and then what's up?
Well, one other thing I wanted to just mention real quick, and sorry, I did a lot of research.
Please. That's why we're here.
So the world that they end up in with the Elvis billboard is actually known as Elvis World.
Okay.
Like That's how it's like it's cataloged like by I don't know if it's on the DVD or whatever, but that's how fans catalog it.
Hmm.
And basically that there's global cooling instead of global warming. Uh, there's 10-term president John F. Kennedy.
Oh, okay.
So he served 10 terms, and yeah, and like you mentioned, like Americans are flocking to Mexico, and also compact discs lost the war to vinyl.
Oh yeah, I heard that on the radio. Yeah, that was funny, and that's not too much different from current day. I don't know if you've heard, but there's been a vinyl explosion these days. Just a lot of hipsters buying vinyl these days.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true.
So he let's see, he returns to his normal world. Quinn is excited. He sees his mom and the gardener. Then he returns to school. He shows up like in the middle of one of Professor Arturo's lecture, and Professor Arturo is angry, and he like, man, nobody yells like John Rice Davies. He yells at him and tells him to like get out of his class. And one thing I wrote down, like, the Asian guy who's in Quinn's class that sort of has a few lines. Did you notice his
Yeah,
hair?
I can't remember if there was something weird about it.
It's very weird. It's like it's long, it's all slicked back, and then somehow it curls. Like it's
I don't know how I missed this.
oh, it's so weird. Yeah, it's a go back and watch it. I know you will someday, and check it out. Yeah, he's got a very odd haircut, even for the '90s. It just really stuck out to me. So of course, like Quinn is kind of like, why does he hate me? And then he goes to his computer store to work. Wade tells him he's been fired because he told the boss to shove it, or something along those lines. Wade also says that he kissed her, and it was great, but of course, Quinn, he's just like too confused about anything, and so
Yeah, he
Wade,
says something to her like, "Why would I kiss you? We're buds."
yeah, we're
And
dude
you can see like
bros.
Wade is like real deflated about it.
Right, which I mean, this is like sort of planting the seeds for their, future will they, want they relationship like throughout the series.
Right. And that there is a kind of a funny bit too where like because she tells Wade is telling Quinn that like, the Michael that the boss fired him and then he doesn't remember and then she goes, "Oh, I guess you don't remember the kiss either." And he's like, "Why would I kiss Michael?"
Yeah. That's great because that's very typical sort of Quinn's like your typical nerd. He's only interested in science. He doesn't even like
Yeah.
care that this
Except
girl.
he's very tall and very good looking.
Right, exactly. That is my. If I have one complaint about this show is that Quinn is almost like too likable. But we'll get to that later. So he goes back home and he asks his mom if he upset her in any way, and she's like, "Why? Were you planning to?" And then he returns to his basement slash lab, where he has discovered that someone has solved the quantum equation or whatever you want to call it. And then out of nowhere, Quinn himself shows up, but now his like bangs are slightly like it's basically Jerry
Yeah,
O'Connell
his hair's like a little different. It's a little bit more
slightly,
kept.
yeah, slightly different. And Quinn with Bangs says he's a slider, and there are multiple versions of worlds, and you're gonna love sliding. And he opens up a portal, says you can't choose which. He basically lays out all the rules to sliding to I guess Earth Prime Quinn. And my question to you, Yahel, is all right. Let's figure out exactly like what happened here. So Earth Prime Quinn, he slides, and so super smart Quinn, did he like find out about it or actually just slide into Earth Prime Quinn's Earth and then
Yeah,
decide he's going to take advantage?
it's just a coincidence. So
Okay.
Prime Quinn, slid to another Earth and then he came back.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he comes back, while he was gone, this other Quinn, well, Quinn 2,
Sure.
slid into Prime Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw that the equation was not finished. So he went ahead and finished it because, like, the Quinn too, like he's a little bit like more
He's more
snooty
evolved.
about
He's smarter. Yeah.
yeah, he's a little bit snooty too about like his own intelligence, and that's why.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like, and one thing I love is they never say it flat out, but like now we know that it's this other Quinn that yelled at, told off the professor. It's
Right.
this other Quinn that kissed Wade,
Mm-hmm.
blah blah blah, etc. But yeah, I mean, it just like as Quinn 2 mentions that gone to like 8 Earths or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's met other versions of himself. So
He's basically sleazebag Jerry O'Connell from the current day.
yeah, but but it's one thing that's great about Quinn 2 is he's obviously like a bit of a narcissist, and he loves himself so much that he'll gladly help this other Quinn out. Because when Quinn 2 says like I'm a slider, Prime Quinn says, "Oh, that's a cool name." He's like, "Well, I'm sure you would have thought of it yourself eventually."
Right. Yeah, that's a funny line, but I just think it's weird. I guess, yeah, that is the idea, is that he's such a narcissist that he's like, huh, well, I'm just going to go here and I'm going to, make out with this Quinn's girlfriend, possible girlfriend. And while I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and like tell off all the authority figures in this Quinn's life. I mean, how heroic of him to take up that
Right.
mantle, basically.
Right. And we know that Quinn 2 has a wife because he says it like, "Oh, my wife's expecting me for dinner" when he goes to leave, which
It's future sleazy Jerry O'Connell. It's so weird.
yeah.
Foretold
And
the
Jerry does
future.
a great job of playing Quinn 2 because he's like just different enough,
Mhm.
but still like he's an asshole, but he's still kind of likable too,
Yeah, you can see in that performance his current day choices of roles, basically.
Yeah.
So weird.
But anyways,
All right, so he starts telling regular Quinn something. Quinn 2 starts telling Earth Prime Quinn something about another rule, but then he gets sucked into the portal. Basically, that
before
rule.
he can finish it, yeah.
And that rule basically is, because I read it later, is the one about sliding before the time gets, up on the timer. It basically screws everything up.
Yeah,
So-
they never mention it, but I mean it's pretty obvious that the thing is like if you slide before the timer's down, you won't slide back to your original point.
Exactly. So now we're with Wade and Professor Arturo. They are hanging outside of Quinn's house. They knock on the door. His mom lets him in. And his mom is like, "Oh, Professor Arturo, Quinn, respects you so much, speaks so highly of you." And he's like, "Well, really? We had quite the altercation earlier." And so cut to, we see an old man watching a Motown group on the TV. And this is Rembrandt Crying Man Brown's like Motown group from, I guess it's supposed to be the 70s. And
I think the 60s maybe because
mean-
it's more of a
yeah, but he doesn't look nearly that old. But hey,
well, if you think about it though, this is 90s, and if
Mm-hmm.
they were like if they were like a pop group or whatever in the 60s, and let's say he was like 25 or something, he'd only be like 55 here.
yeah, but I mean, I guess it's just the fact
But he doesn't
that
look that old even. Yeah,
right.
you're right.
Yeah. The only
Yeah,
difference,
you're probably right. Maybe it's more 70s, yeah.
The only
but
difference-
the music style.
Yeah, oh, for sure. But the only difference between current day Rembrandt and the one from the music video is that he's just got a big fake fro, like
Yeah.
like, it doesn't
Which,
look-
also implies it's the 70s. So I think you're right.
Yes, I mean, I think they didn't put a lot of thought into it. They just thought, oh, this will be funny, and they're right. It is hilarious. Could you describe the video, which they play in full at the end of
At the end of the credits. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, if you guys watch the show, stick around for the credits on episode 1. It's great. But yeah, it's like the background. He's like the main singer. He
He's-
being Rembrandt.
on the floor, like crying to the camera, pointing at his tears and stuff. It's hilarious.
And then one of the lyrics is like, the lyrics are so literal. He's like, and then he started crying from his right eye. He like starts crying, and then he points at it, and then like the next lyric or something, it's like, and then his other eye started crying, and then he turns and the other one starts crying. So this man, the crying man, what they're implying here is that not only can he cry on command, he can also choose which eye cries, which is just so funny.
Yeah, it's a nice little satire of like Motown from back in the day.
Yeah,
It's
and
awesome.
Cleveland is doing, he really sings on the show. He's a real singer,
Hmm. He
and he's
gets
got
to
a
show
great
that off
voice.
at the end. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of episodes where he does singing,
Oh,
from
I'm
what I
sure.
remember.
Yeah. So,
Oh, I'm sorry, Steve. And in the
go ahead.
chat, Ken Williams wrote the actual lyric. Oh, and a tear falling from my other eye. Ken said I have waited years to bust that out. Well, glad to help you bust that stagnant,
It,
incredible release of stagnant energy.
that's what we're here for. We're here to help Denzians of the internet release stagnant energy. That's what Obscurity Now is all about. So yeah, basically this is a discussion between Rembrandt Brown and his manager. He's basically saying how he left his old group, and I mean, and really nobody cared. But now he's gonna get back in the saddle because he's supposed to sing the national anthem at some baseball game or some sort of sporting
Yeah,
event.
it's a
But
baseball game.
even his manager is like, "Hey, you're just singing the national anthem. It's not that big of a deal." But Rembrandt, he's I guess really talked himself up into believing that this is going to be his.
It's like his big comeback.
Yes, exactly. So now we cut
And
to.
did you notice something about what Rembrandt's wearing on
Oh,
his
right.
coat?
I forgot to mention at the end he shows the manager his new look, and it's like this ridiculous. How would you describe it? It looks like a concierge uniform or something.
Yeah, yeah, he's got like this, ridiculous kind of suit. But what's funniest to me is that he's got like the not just like the red AIDS ribbon that a lot of people were wearing in the 90s.
Who want to wear the
Also,
ribbon? Sorry.
he has like 5 or 6 ribbons on, and each one's a different color for like a different cause. And I was reading about this, and Tracy Torme basically was like, he's supposed to be like out of touch. Rembrandt is, and he just sees people wearing like ribbons, like famous celebrities wearing ribbons, these red ribbons, and sometimes other colors, and he doesn't even know what they're for.
Right.
But he just wants to like be back in and seem hip or whatever. So he just puts on like a ribbon for like everything, and he doesn't even know like what they're for or if they're for even any causes, which just makes it extra funny.
Right. It's virtue signaling before it was called virtue signaling.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. So, cut to, we're back in Quinn's basement. Wade and the professor enter the basement, and the professor realizes the equation is solved, and he's all impressed. Quinn shows them the controller, and then we cut back to Rembrandt getting into his car, this like cool convertible. I don't know.
It's like a Cadillac.
Yeah, something like a cool car. And he's like, he's like talking himself up. It's pretty funny. And the professor says that sliding is nonsense. Then Quinn, of course, opens the portal and proves him wrong. Wade and the professor argue on whether or not to go into the portal, but in the end, for the cause of science, he decides to go. So Quinn, he increases the power. He says, oh, since there's more people going through, I need to increase the power on the timer. And so he does that. They get sucked in. And I don't remember this being a thing in the show, but I guess they had to do it for the pilot in order to make this work. The portal moves. It basically goes outside of the basement into the road of all places. And Rembrandt drives his car right through the portal. What did you think of all that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually forgot about that too, but I don't think they ever do it again. Because and it kind of makes sense, right? Because they're saying, oh, are all of us going to fit in here? Because they don't know. And then later on, when they have to go use the portal again, it's like an emergency type situation. They don't have time to like sit here and fiddle around with settings or whatever. Or maybe maybe it's just always bigger. I don't know. But I mean, this is one of the special effects that looks a little wonky when the portal's like moving.
Oh yeah.
And then there's a few like wonky special effects in this. I will say though that like in general, the special effects after the pilot, again, from what I remember, are better. Again, you get more money. A lot of this stuff is, for anyone who's familiar with pilots, changes once the series gets picked up. It was okay. The effects were okay. And like you said, they kind of needed a way to have Rembrandt.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought it was fine.
Alrighty. So basically, Rembrandt drives to the portal. Then he immediately drives his car into a bed of snow. Professor
Yeah, when
Quinn,
he comes out the portal, he comes out like boom into a wall of like, I don't know, the side of something filled with snow, some kind
snow
of
bed or
side of a
something.
mountain.
I
Or
don't know.
yeah,
We're from
something.
Florida. What do you want?
Yeah.
Professor Quinn and Wade end up in a cold, snowy basement. Wade's and this, I think I remember this. This is from the like when they kept running the promo for sliders over and over again. Wade is like, "Wow, sliding is so cool. It's better than sex." And Arturo's like, "Well, I don't know about that, my dear girl."
Arturo fucks.
How could he not? I mean, that guy's just filled with stagnant energy, just waiting to give off. So yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was a funny line that they decided they just wanted, some woman talking about sex to bandy about in between episodes of The Simpsons on Fox back in the day. So they go to
the way that she says this is so cool is really like
it's
bad,
90s
too.
tude.
It's cheesy.
90s cheese tude, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that like the phrase cool, like anytime you have an adult say it in any setting, no one can deliver that and have it come off
right.
well. Like
it sounds like something Bart Simpson would say.
Yeah, like I'll give you an example, a modern example. It's Star Trek. At the end of the first episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is, like an ongoing current show, at the very end, Captain Pike gives this big speech about how they're going to go explore, blah, 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 blah. And it's this big inspirational speech. The speech is great, but then Uhura, the camera zooms in on her, and she goes, "Cool."
Oh, God, that's terrible.
Like,
see, that's
and
why
they use that in all the promos for the show.
Oh, God. Poor Uhura.
Yeah.
Poor Star Trek fans.
And the actress that plays her she's a great actress. And thankfully, nothing else like that happens on the series as of yet. But yeah, pretty bad.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Anyway, so they walk up to the kitchen. Snow is everywhere. He finds a picture of his family, but it's all different. There's like a different sister, some other stuff going on. They go outside and find Rembrandt. He's all, freaking out as one would be if you just drove into San Francisco and there was, snow everywhere. The professor,
yeah, because it's a nuclear winter.
Yeah,
just to be clear.
Yeah, they pull back at one point. I think it's a little bit later, and show that all of San Francisco is just covered in snow. The professor hypothesizes there was a cataclysmic event of some kind, and that's why there's snow everywhere. Rembrandt tells Quinn he wants to go back now, but Quinn doesn't want to alter the timing, which, I mean, he's right not to want to do so. But then a very poorly rendered snow tornado shows up and rips the top off of Rembrandt's car. Everyone's like freaking out, so Quinn basically has no choice. He engages the slider remote, which, I mean, they really need to come up with a cool name for that. But, I mean, the show's over, so it's too late.
Yeah. I think they end up just calling it the timer.
Yeah, the timer. He opens a portal, and everyone makes it in, except for, they basically all slide out of the other side, except for Quinn. And basically there's a moment where like Wade is freaking out, like she's starts crying out of both eyes. She doesn't have the Rembrandt crying man.
She's not the crying man.
Right. And then Quinn just sort of, he poops out the other end of the wormhole. And Quinn notices Wade is in tears, and he's like, "Hey, Wade, what's wrong? Did you hit your head?" And of course, she's all pissed about that. So continuing their sort of, strained relationship, if you will. Rembrandt is angry that he lost his car. Rembrandt hails a cab. And they assume they are back on Earth Prime. They begin walking in the park, and then they come across, I forgot to mention it earlier when the raving homeless man was telling Quinn to join the revolution or the resistance or whatever. He was basically preaching next to a statue of Lincoln, an obviously prop statue of Lincoln.
Yeah.
But now, as they are walking past the statue, it is no longer Lincoln, but Lenin. And
Dun.
yeah,
Wait, isn't this in part two?
I don't. I'm not exactly sure. I thought the crossover was when they. I mean, you can take over now. I wasn't exactly sure where the crossover was.
Oh, because yours was like one.
Yeah, one complete.
Because you
pilot.
didn't get because you broke the law. To
Hey, if telling people about sliders is breaking the law, then lock me up, comrade.
Hey, well, excuse me. Yeah, because I believe that the finale. Yeah, actually, I remember exactly. So part one ends when, they're trying to leave the tundra world, and Quinn, and it basically ends on the Arturo, Wade, and Rembrandt landing in the Earth.
I thought that was where it was, but I wasn't 100%
and then Quinn
sure.
hasn't come through, and then like they go to credits.
All right, so I'm gonna tag out here and let Yahel take you the rest of the ride. Oh yeah.
All right. So Quinn, shocker, he comes through the vortex. I thought they were going to kill him off, but at the last second, he jumps through the vortex, and the sliders find themselves in what appears to be their world at Golden Gate Park again. Rembrandt is like distraught at the loss of his Cadillac, but he's relieved to be home. Rembrandt says he's going to hire a taxi cab to take him to the stadium, where, like you mentioned, he's scheduled to sing the national anthem at the baseball game. Wade walks off. She says she's going to leave to look for a phone booth to call home. Remember phone booths, kids?
Thank you for. What's a phone booth? She's a cell phone. God.
So Quinn and Arturo are walking in the park, wondering why the timer brought them to the park instead of the basement, like it was supposed to. So here we're getting like our first hint of like, ooh, you slid too early, and
the timer's
something's
damaged. Right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So then they notice. That's another thing. The timer's like not working now. As Quinn and Arturo are walking, that's when they notice that instead of a statue of Lincoln in the park, there's now a statue of Nikolai Lenin. Dun dun dun. Which, like you mentioned earlier, I mean, the statues are obviously like props or whatever, but I really like this reveal.
Sure. No, I mean, it's good stuff.
Yeah. And there's some dramatic music, and then they cut to the theme here. Anyways, Wade's attempts to she's at the phone booth. She's trying to call home and use the operator, and the operator tells her that it's the PT&T, the People's Telephone and Telegraph Company. So it's like the AT&T of this world.
This is one of many little subtle differences that really help like sell the world.
Yeah. So the operator is like asking her some information, like first, like, oh, what do you want to call? And she needs like her, I don't know, citizen calling authorization number.
Right.
Something like a normal citizen of this earth, this version of America would have. And she's like, and Wade's like, what are you talking about? The operator can tell something's up. So the operator tells her to stay there and that the PT&T telephone security is on its way.
Yeah.
To apprehend her. And Wade's like, never mind, hangs up, and she walks back.
I feel like that gag has, I mean, not saying it wasn't good. I mean, because I feel like that gag has been done before.
I think so
like,
too.
Either in like Judge Dredd or one of those other sort of future Demolition Man, something along those lines. But it's a great gag nonetheless.
Yeah, it's a gag. It works. So now we're in the cab that Rembrandt got. So Rembrandt asked the driver to turn on the baseball game, and the cab driver's like doesn't speak English.
Right.
He only speaks Russian, and his name's Pavel.
Which is normal if you live in California, just letting everybody know.
Well, and Rembrandt makes some comment about like, oh, if you're going to be in this country, you should learn the language or whatever.
Wow. What a right winger.
Yeah. But anyways, he gets him to turn on the game. And on the radio, they're playing the Soviet anthem,
right?
Which Rembrandt like doesn't recognize. He goes, "Oh, must be playing a Canadian theme, a Canadian team," which is pretty funny line.
You don't know the Canadian national anthem, there, Rembrandt? Dude, come on.
Rembrandt has a lot of like really funny lines.
Yeah,
And honestly, some of his lines are so cheesy and
Mhm.
stupid that they could really fall flat, but the actor Cleveland does such a good
He
job
makes
with the
it work.
character.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, he's great. But yeah, and then like as soon as the anthem is on, like the cab driver is like saluting,
Mhm.
the flag, and
Mhm.
there's a car driving by,
Mhm.
and they're saluting too. So I guess the anthem's like playing like on everyone's radio or something. And
Mhm.
Rembrandt's like, what the hell is going on here? Then we cut back to the park, and there's a U.S. senator, which we know he's a senator because there's a big sign behind him that says U.S. Senator.
Yeah.
Uh, Anyways, he's got a couple like Soviet military people there next to him, and he's making this
Mhm.
big like fascist type speech
Right.
about how the American underground revolution has almost been defeated,
Yep.
and blah blah blah. And then we
Mhm.
see that Quinn, Wade, and Arturo are watching the speech, and that's
Mhm.
when they realize for sure that they are not on their Earth.
And then, oh, I really rolled my eyes at this. I mean, I guess you can get away with it in the 90s if you're trying to appeal to executives who graduated from some university in Florida. When Jerry O'Connell says, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah,
Oh, man, I wanted to blow my brains out.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, other
Well,
than
you know
that,
what's funny? I
the
also think
writing
you
is
can get.
solid.
Oh, I also think another reason why you can get away with that in the '90s is like they weren't as removed from that film as we are now.
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, it's just that that's a cliche that's been
I
used
agree.
so many
I agree.
times.
Even then, it was
Yeah,
cliched and
yeah,
overused. I
yeah.
100% agree.
Hmm.
But like you said, it was probably something to appeal to
Sure.
these idiots.
The ones who dangle the nuts from their truck. What was that line?
Oh, yeah, the truck nut
The
danglers or
truck nut
whatever.
danglers. Yeah.
Yeah. So Rembrandt, like we're back in the cab, and the cab driver is asking him for like money to pay for a toll,
Hmm.
and Rembrandt's like, sure, sure. He pulls out like a dollar to give to him, and then the cab driver looks at it, and he's like shocked when he
Right.
looks at the bill, and it's so then they stop at the booth, but then like the cab driver runs out of the taxi. He runs up to the booth. He's like showing them the dollar,
Hmm.
and it's like Soviet military that's at the booth, and he's like, "This guy gave me this,"
Right.
and so they surround the taxi cab that Rembrandt is still in with like guns, like machine guns or something, and they're all
Hmm.
like pointing it at him, and there's like a dozen guys like pointing guns at him, and Rembrandt just goes, "Oh." Did you? He's like scared, but he's like, "Oh, did you guys need exact
Yeah.
change?"
Did you? All right. I just had a thought. Do you think that the writers here for Rembrandt, you think they could have possibly been inspired by the cat from Red Dwarf?
Maybe.
I mean, just very loosely, and it doesn't have anything to do with race. Just that they're
No,
both
no,
sort
no.
of
Just
entertainers. They're very
yeah,
comedic, and yeah, yeah. I mean, that I just saw a little bit of the cat in there. That's all.
yeah, yeah. I could definitely see that. At first, when you said the cat, before you added, the red dwarf, I thought you were about WCW, the
Oh,
cat.
gee, I knew we wouldn't make it through an episode without mentioning WCW. I knew it.
Oh man, we should like do a review of his career or something
Sure,
somehow.
sure, why not?
Anyways, so now we're back to Arturo, Quinn, and Wade, and they're
Hmm.
walking around the city. And the city is like filled. I actually really like the look. I don't know who the scenic, set decorator was or whatever, but they did a great job. The city is like it's nighttime. It's filled with like Russian guards everywhere. They're
Hmm.
shaking people down. You hear a lot of like background audio of like guards asking people things like, "Where are you going? Let me see your papers,"
It's
that kind of stuff.
very similar to current day San Francisco. Just throwing it out there.
So you can also hear like gunfire in the
Hmm.
distance from time to time.
People are being disappeared by the guards and stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
just what you would
um,
expect a Soviet-controlled San Francisco to look like.
yeah, yep. And they mentioned that they're waiting. This was a little weird so they're talking about how the device isn't working and because they want to get out of there and they're like,
Hmm.
whoa, when can we slide? And Quinn says like that they're waiting for the device to recharge itself.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, okay.
I
I don't
left the
know how that
charger
works.
back in our regular Earth.
Yeah, I think this is like a season, or excuse me, like something that they just hadn't really like
figured out yet.
figured out exactly how it was going to work,
Sure.
in the pilot. But the point is that, it's the classic, we got to put like a ticking time bomb
Right.
thing in the episode, and they just don't know when they're going to slide again.
Right. It's almost like when Dr. Sam Beckett, he doesn't know when he's going to leap again,
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. But and I do like this because it means that they need to like find Rembrandt soon because they don't know if they're going to slide in 5 minutes or 5 days.
Exactly.
So we cut to Rembrandt. He's being interrogated in this like a warehouse where a bunch of people are being interrogated.
That's the weirdest. The open floor plan for their interrogation room, and you could see like the extras in the back. There's one person in a chair and one guard sort of circling them. And
there's a dozen of these sets of like interrogator and guard and whatever.
I mean, what if somebody, breathes some sensitive information, but then they let one of the other people who were being interrogated go, and then they went back and like told, the revolution, the sensitive information they heard. I mean, come on, fake communist USA, get it together is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I thought it was a little weird. It is a cool looking shot.
It's a cool visual. Absolutely.
It's a great visual. And I guess, so at first I thought exactly what you were thinking. Like, it doesn't make sense because other people are overhearing each other's conversations. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, does it really matter? Because they're going to kill all these people.
Or lock them up. Yeah, it's true.
It's implied that like they're all going to everyone that gets picked up is going to get put away. So ultimately, I guess it doesn't really matter, right?
Right.
So where was I here? Rembrandt's being interrogated. He's accused of being an American, revolutionary member. Mm-hmm. And the guy that's interrogating him, he says, your name can't be Rembrandt. That's got to be an alien. And Rembrandt was killed 12 years ago in the Detroit uprising, which is really cool bit of world building just with one line. That tells you this has been going on for at least over a decade.
Sure.
They've been trying to fight this control. They don't believe him. They don't believe Rembrandt when he says he's from another Earth. Mm. Then Rembrandt notices that the interrogator is the lawyer that we saw on TV. Mm-hmm. We saw like a commercial for a lawyer in part one of this, like, really like ambulance chasing type lawyer. And he says, yeah, I can't remember it's something Ross. Like, you're William J. Ross or something like that.
And just to throw in a little bit as trivia there real quick, based on an actual lawyer out here in LA who, ran his cheesy commercials, because at the end he would always say the actual lawyer, his name is like Larry H something or other, and he always goes, and I will fight for you. And like that's like the line that sets Rembrandt off, because he goes, now look here, like Rembrandt, like if you give me information on the revolution, I'll fight for you. And then that's like what sets Rembrandt off. He's like, hey, you're the lawyer guy.
Yeah. Thank you. Great pickup. Anyways, this is really funny because the lawyer's like really taken aback, or the interrogator, I should say, about this. He's like, and then he goes and he, being the lawyer, goes and talks to like a Soviet guard general that's there supervising everything. And the Russian guy's like, well, how does he know this about you?
Right.
And he's like, well, I mean, I've never done a TV commercial, so that's not true. Yeah, but he knew your name. He's like, he must be a dangerous and highly trained operative.
Right.
He's infiltrated us. We've got to deal with this guy. Mm-hmm. And the attorney's like, don't worry, I've got connections. I know what to do with, to make him disappear, basically. Mm-hmm. So the attorney comes back to slash interrogator comes back to Rembrandt, and he says that he's going to send him to the People's Court for trial.
Oh man. And yeah, when they said the People's Court, I was like, oh, I get it. The Russian People's Court, or the
right. That's what I thought it was
Court.
Too. Yeah.
But then he goes to the actual People's Court, and if you're
the TV show,
right? If you're a young person listening to us, I mean, you probably know that, I guess, judge shows are still a thing. I don't know who the judges are these days, but I'd say maybe the first one.
Well, they brought back the People's Court like 10 years ago for a little bit, I think.
Did they? Yeah, well, back in the 90s, the big one was the People's Court with Judge Wapner. If you were unemployed back then, you were sitting at home watching the People's Court. And, it's basically just like how it is now. People with small claims would get in there and, you can laugh at them or whatever. And then at the end, they get interviewed by Doug Llewellyn, the interviewer for the People's Court, and that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what happens here. I almost
We'll get to that scene, but yeah.
okay, yeah. Go ahead. We'll get through that. Yeah.
So by the way, they brought back the People's Court in 1997
Mm-hmm.
and 2007, but it's currently ongoing. I guess they had two different People's Court at one point, but the one that they brought back in 97 is still going strong.
Nice. I guess. Nice. Good. Good for those
So
unemployed
people
people.
might be aware of it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, sure.
So anyways, then we cut to back to the street, and we see like an older woman is being taken by the soldiers into a car. She's yelling that she didn't do anything, and they whisk her away. Then, and I was shocked by this. I did not remember this at all. The camera pans around, and soldiers execute like 2 or 3 people on the street with a machine gun. And they don't show blood or anything, but they do show them getting shot and then falling to the ground. I was really surprised.
Yeah. I don't remember this show sort of reaching that level of, I don't know what you want to call it here, realism, or I don't want to use the word darkness, but yeah, I was kind of surprised.
Violence.
At that too.
I mean, yeah. So, like I said, those people get executed, and then Arturo says that he's hungry. They're like, we got to get out of here. And he's like, well, I'm hungry. He just watched like 3 people die 10 feet from him.
Well, he's been traveling around with Indiana Jones. Like nothing phases him. He just wants a hot dog.
That's a good point. And then they're like, how can you eat at a time like this? And he says, my stomach has no political preferences.
That's a great line. Fantastic.
He's got a bunch of like funny quips too.
Sure.
So they go to buy a hot dog from a street vendor, and the vendor's like, oh, it'll be $1. Arturo gives him obviously an American US dollar, and the street vendor's like looks at the dollar like, oh fuck it. He's like, and then the street vendor gives he tells Arturo to be careful, comrade, and gives him back a red. It looks just like a dollar bill, but it's red instead of green.
Man, I would love to have that red dollar bill. It
looked pretty cool. And then on the face of the dollar bill, instead of it being George Washington, it's Nikita Khrushchev's face.
If only it would have been Nikita Koloff. Then
that would have been hilarious.
There you go.
So then Wade sees that there's people after her, and she figures that they're the phone company operatives chasing her. And then the hot dog vendor offers to help them and takes Arturo, Quinn, and Wade to the underground American resistance. Pretty cool set here, actually, too. It's like in this big tunnel.
Yep.
So we end a guy as they're walking through. They get to this hallway, and they're passing all of these like resistance fighters. Really cool set dressing here. And then at the very end of this like hallway or installation or whatever, they meet this guy who later we'll find out his name is Wilkins, and he grabs Wade. He's like shocked to see her, grabs her and gives her a big passionate kiss, and we find out that Wade is the commander of this sect of the resistance, and that she's been captured.
Yes, yeah, she's like the right hand of the leader of this resistance.
She is the leader, because Wilkins says that later when Wilkins talks about Wade, he says that she's my lover and my commander.
Right. And I will say I like Wilkins's shirt. It's a Statue of Liberty holding like an AK-47 or something.
Yeah.
What do you think about Wilkins's acting?
It's okay. He becomes much better later on in his career. I know from seeing him in Dark Matter a few years ago.
I didn't think he was very good here.
No, he's not great. He's all right. He's serviceable. But
bare minimum is what it felt like to me, but that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think because there's a lot of really good performances, his like stands out even more. Is not on the same level.
Sure, I could see that.
But yeah, not a great performance. Wade, or they separate Quinn and Professor Arturo, and they have them like tied up with like their hands above their head, and they have a little conversation. And Arturo like is like basically consoling Quinn. And tells him, don't worry, we'll get back to Earth and we'll see your mom. Because Quinn is like worried that like, great, now my mom lost dad and she's going to lose me.
Right.
So nice little scene there for the characters. Then we see that Wade was able to convince they let Quinn and Arturo go and bring them back to the the kissing room from earlier.
Right.
Wade was able to convince the rebels that they're from a parallel Earth. And at this point, we learn from the rebels that that they're the West Coast branch of the Free America Underground.
Should just call them the West Coast Avengers.
So we learn from them that the Soviet Union, through its proxy states, won the Korean War and gradually enveloped the whole world under communism. Arturo calls it like the domino theory, which is like a real thing.
Yep.
So Arturo explains, like how in their world it was the opposite. It's the Soviet Union that fell, and mentions that the Berlin Wall came down.
And I like how the revolutionaries, like Wilkins and his other sort of friend, they're just like, oh man, that sounds like a paradise. I wish we could be there right now. And it makes you, at the time, I'm sure it made you feel pretty good about being alive in the 90s in America.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It is funny how, it's funny looking at it now in 2023. So we also find out that Arturo in this world, the Soviet world, he's called like citizen general. He's like some kind of general.
Right.
And for the Soviets, and he's running the NorCal Penitentiary, which is for high profile political prisoners. And then our Arturo Prime, quips, always a leader of men, no matter what the circumstances.
That was very Garth Marenghi. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Quinn asks Wade what Wilkins meant by that. He could tell that it wasn't his Wade, because implying that Quinn's getting jealous.
Right.
Because he's worried that they kissed more or something. I don't know.
Well, you see, Wade there's a birthmark. No.
Wade says, "What do you care? We're buds," which is a nice little callback to part one.
Absolutely.
She gets a nice little jab on him, so I like that. Then Wade walks up to some other guy that's working at the underground rebel thing. He's I guess the guy's just monitoring TV for Russian propaganda. And that's when they show the rap video about the comrades serving the state and feeding the people.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Then the guy changes the channel, and it's like a PBS pledge drive.
I loved that. He's like,
me too.
You need to donate now, or else we'll be coming for you, or we're watching.
I actually wrote it down. So the guy says, it's pledge week on PBS, comrades. Pledge your support or else. We know who you are.
That's so good. I mean, the sad thing is that, again, if you're a super young person and you watch this, you're probably not going to get some of these jokes, but it's still good.
Yeah, I think PBS still does pledge drives.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, money. They still need money, from what I understand.
Right, of course.
Just like God, they always need money.
Yep, you got to have that fourth jet.
Yep. All right. So then they flip the channel again, and they start playing the People's Court theme song, and it's an episode of the People's Court, but it's with Rembrandt's case. And man, what a great way to show it. And we see Rembrandt's case play out on the TV as Wade's watching, and she's like, "What the hell?" Yeah. So she's like, "Come here, guys." So they show the trial of Rembrandt, and it's hilarious.
Oh yeah, Rembrandt. He's all small claims court, my ass. What's going on here? He's so confused. It's awesome.
Yeah. So we learned during the trial that the American bills, dollar bills, are a symbol of the resistance. So it's like Judge Wapner saying, and he's like, "Did you hand this to the cabbie?" And he's like, "Don't you know there's a symbol of the American resistance?" And so Rembrandt tries to, give him the story that he's from a different Earth. Judge Wapner is not having it. He doesn't believe it. Rembrandt gets sentenced by the People's Court to 15 years in the Alaskan Gulag. And then Rembrandt's like, 15 years? Is that what you said? And he's like, yeah, 15 years. And then he's like, don't you mean $15?
Yeah. Oh, man. So good.
Yeah. So anyways, then they do in People's Court, the actual TV show, there's always an interview after the trial where what's the guy's name that does the interview?
Doug Llewellyn.
Doug Llewellyn would interview the winners and the losers. So in this case, he's interviewing Rembrandt, and Rembrandt says, he's like, how do you feel about the decision or something like that? And Rembrandt goes, I'm never watching this show
Yeah.
again. Small claims my ass.
Oh man,
Then Doug Llewellyn tells Rembrandt, well, Rusty has a few confessions for you to sign, and they take him over.
that's so See, that is just good, clean satire that
Yeah,
we just don't get in TV anymore. I mean,
it's rare.
if
It's
they
rare for
do
sure.
attempt satire, it's like beat you over the head with it, basically. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. This is really well done. You can see that this is a man that worked on Star Trek. Uh,
Jesus. Sure, I'll go with it. Why not?
all right, so then we're back at the Resistance Underground, and with the Underground's help, I'm gonna kind of, I kind of condensed a lot of what
Sure.
happens here. So if there's any additional details, by all means, drop them in. But with the Underground's help, the Sliders basically stage a raid on the NorCal Federal Penitentiary, which was converted from the University of California, actually. They also mention. So the plan is to go in there and liberate Rembrandt and Wade's double. So we'll just call her like Soviet Wade, Soviet Earth Wade, because she's was captured and she's gonna be being held there as well. And they're gonna try and free some other people too.
Right, but the crux of this plan is Arturo pretending to
Right.
be his double. So
Right, exactly.
yeah, they basically he drives
So,
up.
well, I mean, Steve, I didn't condense it that much.
Oh,
I did
okay,
more.
excuse me.
So now we see that Arturo is dressed up in like Soviet gear, garb, military garb. So he's posing as his own double, the Citizen General of West Coast Operations. And they get to like the guard tower. It's not a tower, it's like the guard. What do you call it? Like a little guardhouse.
Sure.
At the gate for the penitentiary, and he talks the guard into letting them pass. He's able to convince them, it seems, that he's the real Arturo. And he even passes like this handprint check where he has to put his hand on like this device.
That handprint
And,
check was so over the top. Like after it scanned it, it even had like a lady's voice programmed in it. Like it might as well have been
Yeah.
sentient.
Yeah, it's like confirmed, Citizen General, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And like Arturo obviously doesn't know how things work here in the world, so there's some like kind of funny conversations here.
Oh,
Where
the whole
he's trying to-
exchange is really funny.
yeah, he's like trying to tell the guards that he needs to let them through, and he's like, "Since when do you, make me go through these procedures?" And they're like, "You created these procedures, and you said, to let, everyone, no matter who it is, has to go through this."
Right.
And so, which is cool because like once he does the handprint thing, they let him through, and we think he's convinced them. But throughout the conversation leading up to that, there were a bunch of things to make the guards suspicious.
Right.
And as they drive away, we find out that, well, the guards really were suspicious, and the guard starts calling someone and ask for, hey, where's Citizen General Arturo?
Yeah, they basically call him at home and realize that he was at home in bed the whole time.
Yeah. Now we don't realize is it in this scene,
Right. Yeah,
and
it's later.
it's not Arturo that like picks up, but during the breakout, we cut back to that guard on the phone, and that's when he finds out that Citizen General Arturo is at home. So yeah, the Sliders like go in and they get Wade out. They get Rembrandt out. Wade is like in another tower, and Prime Wade is over there like getting her or something.
Sure.
With some other people. And basically, this is when like the alarms go off because they find out that Arturo is sitting at home, and there's a big action sequence. Lots of shooting. They're
Yeah.
being chased. I'm sure a lot of money went into this because
Absolutely. Yeah, I enjoyed the action. It basically
I thought you would.
it all and I know you definitely don't get this at the end of every episode of Sliders. This was the sell to the executives from Florida, 100%. And I love how the whole sort of action scenes ends with Rembrandt firing a bazooka at like a building.
It's not Rembrandt.
It's not?
It's Wilkins. It's Wilkins.
Oh, my mistake. Anyway, he murders a lot of people, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
A lot.
yeah. I mean, there's another explosion too during the big shootout too. Like a tower gets shot out and explodes, and yeah, man, there's like a lot of extras and a lot of stunt work here. I mean, I would say In reality, it's probably more like 20 people total in the scenes,
Right.
but because the way that they cut it up, it seems like there's like 100 people
Yep.
involved in this. It's
Well,
great.
so when you have John Landis on board, he can get that money, I guess.
Yeah. So anyways, like you said, it ends with the shooting of the guard post with a rocket launcher.
Hmm.
And if this was done today, there'd be like, well, if this was done today, when people get shot, you'd see blood. Number
Hmm.
one, there's like no, this is like a very bloodless gunfight.
Sure.
Uh, but you also wouldn't probably get these real explosions, these
Oh,
CG
oh, yeah, yeah. I
explosions. And
really appreciated the practical
yeah,
effects.
yeah, it's really, really, really nicely done here. And during this whole big melee, though, we see that Wade, who's in the car, like on Quinn's lap or something,
Well,
I
she's
guess.
just sitting in the passenger seat, sort of bent over on the dash, and they're like, "Hey, Wade, we did it. How you doing?" And she had been shot, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And Quinn's freaking out. He's like, stop the truck,
Hmm.
pull over. They start, doing CPR on her,
Hmm.
but it's clear that she's gonna die or is already
Hmm.
dead. And then, but it's a fake out because then behind him is walking, Prime Wade is walking up and
Right.
calls out to him.
The only one
And
that matters, the real Wade of
right,
this world just died, and we're supposed to be okay with that as the viewers, I guess.
yeah. I mean, I don't think we're supposed to be okay with it,
Hmm.
but um, but Quinn is
Right. Yeah.
apparently.
I was like, oh, thank God the real Wade is okay. I don't care about this revolutionary
Well,
lady.
to be fair, I don't think it's that he's,
Nah.
happy about it, but obviously, he's relieved
Sure. Oh,
that
100%.
the Wade that he knows is alive, and they
Right.
have a big hug. And they did this thing, which I didn't notice the first time I watched it, so I'm really glad I caught it a second time. It's real subtle. I imagine this was a choice that I don't know if it was a choice that Jerry O'Connell made or if he was directed to do this, but they do a big hug, and did you notice that Quinn goes to kind of kiss her,
Oh
and then like
no.
stops halfway through? He moves to like give her like a kiss on the cheek, and then he like pulls back.
Oh, that's really good.
That's yeah. I
Hmm.
thought that was a great
Nice,
choice.
subtle. Yeah, yeah, really good.
Yeah. I wish I knew who made the decision, but whoever made the choice, nicely done. All right. So we're
And that's basically
so
it, right?
anyways, wait. No, how dare you? There's so much more. I have like a paragraph and a half left. So at the underground base, they're taking they're gonna move to another base. So they're taking things down, but there's also a makeshift funeral being held for everyone that died
Oh,
during the
right. How
raid.
could I forget that? Yeah.
And there's a bunch of bodies, maybe not a bunch, like five or six,
Yeah.
that have American flags draped over them. We get confirmation that Wade did die. Soviet Wade,
Hmm.
Soviet Earth Wade died. And during this whole scene, Rembrandt is singing Amazing Grace,
Hmm.
a cappella. So it's a really cool, somber scene. Um, and then we hear that the jailbreak, somebody tells Prime Wade that the jailbreak inspired other resistance cells all over the country. And now, like, the revolution has new life
Right.
and that the
I
revolution is
think
still
that's a
alive.
way of covering, like, because I thought it was going to be the other way, where the revolutionaries were going to be like, you weirdos show up and now our Wade is dead. But instead, they did a switcheroo where it's like, oh, you guys inspired the other revolutionaries, and
Yeah.
it's okay that she's dead. It's all right.
Well, it's that the raid was successful
Yeah.
that inspires them. So it's not, which in a way, yeah, it's because of the sliders because they had Arturo to get in there,
Hmm.
but really it's mostly the revolutionaries that did the work. But yeah, I think they were just probably not trying to have like a sad
Exactly. They were trying to have a positive ending for the most part.
because there is a sad ending to
Yes.
the actual ending that we were about to get to. But yeah, I think they needed to have something positive
Sure.
because at least in the first episode.
Right, right, right. It can't all be Battlestar Galactica reboot.
Yeah. You don't want to depress everybody right off the bat,
Yep,
basically.
exactly.
So anyways, meanwhile, Arturo and Quinn, I guess the timer didn't need to recharge itself because Arturo actually repaired it.
Hmm.
And there's a little bit of meta humor here where like Quinn's like, oh, I don't know how you were able to do all these calculations. And Arturo is like, oh, well, back in my day, we didn't have your fancy calculators. He's like, and he pulls out a slide ruler. He's like, "Have you ever heard of a slide ruler? Wink, wink, slide, get it?"
And how about this abacus? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, anyways, they leave. They're because they decide. Or Arturo, I think, is the one that says that they should probably go back to the Golden Gate Park and slide from there to have the best chance to return back home. Excuse me. So they're leaving and they're walking in the streets. They being the sliders, pronouns, pal. Thanks, Vince. All right, so a guard tries to stop the sliders for violating curfew, and I really like this because like Wade up until this point, especially at the beginning of the pilot, she's like very meek and shy and this and that, and she says, "I don't have time for this," and goes right up to the guy and like kicks him in the balls, you know. So
yeah, it's a nice little
character growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And now they run because now they're being pursued by a mob of like citizen informants, is what they're described as in like Sliders media literature that I looked up. Anyways, the Sliders get back to the park. They, get the slide going. They barely escape through the vortex and they jump through it. And then when we see them like arrive at the other side of the slide tunnel, you can tell like everybody did their own stunts here. But for some reason, John Rhys Davies, who plays Arturo, and he's not a small man.
No.
He does like a front flip into the bush.
I remember that.
Almost lands on his neck. I'm like, why would you do this?
Yeah.
But anyways, he was not injured, by the way. So by all appearances, it looks like they're home. The cab driver, because they end up getting in a cab, he's from the same it's the same guy from the Soviet Earth, but this time he speaks English and he recognizes Rembrandt from the Spinning Tops group. The statue of Lincoln is back, and also when they get to Quinn's house, the front gate that squeaks, he says it's squeaked ever since he was 12. It squeaks just like it's supposed to. And this gate thing is like a thing that comes up in later episodes of Sliders, where like there's like a few other times where he thinks he might be home, but like the gate doesn't squeak, that kind of thing.
That's so good.
Yeah. So it's really nice that they establish it, and it's something that they come back to even in the finale of the series, from what I remember. So yeah. Anyways, so they go inside Quinn's house, and the mom is there, and she invites them everybody to stay over for dinner. At the dinner table, the Sliders are talking about what to do with the timer. And I really like this conversation. It's a very Star Trek-esque conversation, actually, about the morals and the implications.
Right, should they get rid of it? Yeah.
Right. And Arturo suggests destroying it. And he cites, the regrets that Albert Einstein and Oppenheimer had because of their knowledge being used to create weapons of mass destruction. On the other side of the coin, Quinn brings up that there could be worlds that have cures for cancer or that achieve world peace, and they could learn from those worlds.
And just to jump in there real quick, this conversation actually spawned a couple of episodes. There's one where they go where Albert Einstein didn't create the atomic bomb or something along those lines. And I think
you're right.
The other one with the cancer thing, I think that's a thing as well. But yeah, a few episodes were gleamed from this conversation.
Yeah, which is awesome. Yeah. Nice callback. Anyways, so they're having, Quinn goes to do a toast, and then their dinner is interrupted by the unexpected. Somebody arrives at the door, and it's Quinn's father, who, as we learned in the first part, was hit by a car and died 12 years ago on Prime Earth. So now Quinn looks at his dad and says "Hi, Dad," but he's shocked and realizing that Quinn realizes he's not on his Earth, and Quinn drops his wine glass, and they do the classic shot of the wine glass dropping to the floor,
slow-mo,
and it breaks when it hits the ground, and hard cut to credits.
Yes,
I love that they did a hard cut to credits.
Yeah.
Damn.
That was a good ending. Let's see. Ken here, he writes, I remember one where they didn't create antibiotics and strep throat was running rampant. I definitely don't remember that one.
I don't remember that one either, but that's great. Yeah, why don't we rate it, and then I'll bring up a few of the other Sliders worlds.
All right, let's do it.
Remember how rated that is the question.
All right, Yahel Prime, if you really are the Yahel Prime, I don't even know these days. Do you think sliders should be remembered for all of human history or tossed into the black wormhole of obscurity, never to be heard from again?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. I say keep it. It's great. In fact, I'll probably, now that I know about the order that it was supposed to be watched in, I think I'm gonna rewatch it. It's only 5 seasons. It's not very long. But yeah, I say remember it. It's great. There's some like really fun uh, and scary alternate Earths that they visit. Yeah, what say you?
Oh yeah, I love this show. Since I stopped watching like in the middle, yeah, I could probably do with a rewatch of the series myself, plus all the episodes that I didn't watch. The question is though, should Sliders be like remade, brought back? Should Jerry O'Connell take up the mantle again? What do you think?
Man, I'm not usually like a huge fan of remakes,
Hmm.
but I think that this show would benefit or would be a good candidate for a remake because you can cut out like some of the stuff that doesn't work, like the Cro-Mag stuff, and just some of the sillier kind of stuff that derailed. You could get better actors too for some of the replacements that come on later.
Hmm.
You could do it that way, or you could even do like and I'm generally surprised no one's done it, is do like a limited series with Jerry
Oh,
O'Connell,
yeah. I mean,
pick up like from, and let's see what's happened in the last, 30 years or whatever, 20 years.
it's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, they did that with X Files, even though I hear that didn't really go that great.
Yeah,
But
but you know what did go great when they just did is season 3 of Picard ended up being picking up the TNG cast and seeing what they're doing now.
which is what
Um,
everyone wanted from the get go, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it. What about you?
Sure. I mean, well, obviously you can't bring back one of the writers because he passed on, but I guess everyone else is still alive and well. I don't see why not. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Bring it back. Bring back the original cast. Yeah, give us
I,
something because like, it
I would
ends.
love to.
Doesn't it end on
Sorry,
a
go ahead.
cliffhanger?
I don't want to reveal how it ends on the podcast in
Okay.
case anybody watches it.
All right.
But I would love to see like Sliders rebooted with maybe either rebooted or do a continuation of what Quinn's up to and Rembrandt and all those people are up to.
But we have to
Um,
replace Jerry O'Connell with Timothy Chalamet because the guy is just everywhere these days. So talented, so talented.
no, keep O'Connell. But what I would like to see is if like J. Michael Straczynski was running it, or even like the head writer on it, because I think this is like right up his alley.
They Arturo and Rembrandt team up and they go find Jerry O'Connell running a strip club in Tampa. That's how.
Yeah, and you already gave away that prime Arturo dies, but you could always
Sorry, it's been 20 years. Sue me.
hey, but we cover obscure stuff that people may not watch and
It's
may want to
true.
after.
It's true. I'm sorry,
You just don't care about the
Obscurians. I'm
listeners.
sorry. I will punish myself later.
Yeah. But the great thing is you can still have him on the show, just get one from another Earth.
There you go. Well, that's how a
So,
multiverse destroys death and consequences in movies and TV.
but on Sliders,
It's
like
okay in
it
sliders.
works because it doesn't feel like a Deus Ex Machina,
Sure,
you know?
sure.
It doesn't feel cheap.
Right. I agree.
All right. Well, I guess this will be remembered.
Oh yeah, right. I remembered to hit the remembered.
In accordance to Obscurity Now, the most important streaming YouTube podcast in all of the internet, you shall be remembered. Yes. Good show. Good show.
All right. Remembered it
So
is.
I did want to mention like a couple of the other worlds that are kind of fun
Mm-hmm.
or interesting. There's a world called Spider Wasp World
Okay.
where basically there's these genetically engineered insects called spider. It's a mix of a spider and a wasp and they can eat through drywalls and have an appetite for human flesh, and they've decimated North and South America.
I think I remember that one.
There's the British world where like everyone's like in America has embraced like, you know, quote unquote proper British sophistication.
But yeah, but that's because the British won the Revolutionary War.
Right.
I'm not giving away too much again, am I?
There's one called like Cannibal Worlds where there's like cannibals living in the jungles of San Francisco. The jungles of San Francisco.
I don't think I remember that one.
There's one where that's called Crying Man World, where like he's like a huge star.
He's like
I remember
Elvis,
that one being,
basically. Yeah.
Yeah. There's one like called Einstein's World where athletes are basically like mathletes, like they have like a board to move on.
Oh, that's every nerd's wet dream right there.
Yeah, they wear like basketball uniforms, but it's like this like board, and they have to like answer like an equation, and I think maybe shoot a basket or something to move on. And like Quinn is like a superstar mathlete, basically.
That's fun.
There's one called Mystic World where like magic and sorcery is real.
Ooh, man, I missed that one.
Yeah, and I don't know, it might be that same episode, Mystic World, but there's an episode where like vampires are real also.
Of course, because it was the 90s. They had to get the vampires in there.
Yeah, there's a psychic world where like psychics are real. I know that there's
Call me now for your free reading.
There's one where like everyone's nude. It's like nude world. Dinosaur world where I think you can imagine.
Oh, I remember that.
There.
Oh, the bad CGI. Oh, thanks to Jurassic Park. I remember that one well.
Yeah, there's like one that's all about like gangsters. And by the way, some of these worlds that I've mentioned, they only get visited for like a couple minutes.
Right. And
like
they like if it's too expensive, they immediately jump to another one. Yeah.
Like something like that. Like which is another great thing about the show. It's like sometimes you might get 2, maybe even 3 worlds in a show, depending on how they slide. Like I remember there's one, and I'm so glad they did this, where they slide into like the middle of like, you know, they thankfully happen to slide on land, but everything else around them is like lava or something. And they're like, oh shit. And like, I think at this point it was later in the series and they could slide whenever they wanted to. And they like slide like right away or something. They're like, oh no. The timer has to go off. That's right. They're still on the timer. And they're like, oh God, when's the next slide? And thankfully, conveniently, it's like in the next like minute or something.
Right.
And like the rock that they're on is like crumbling or something, and they get out just in time, and then the real show starts.
Right.
But that was it. But anyways, I'll stop because there's like tons and tons and tons and tons of worlds. There's way more worlds than there are episodes.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Ken, our one live stream attendee here. But of course, no matter how you experience us, thanks for watching and or listening. We won't have a live episode next week because I will be at the Pasadena Comic-Con trying to spread the word about this podcast and, of course, my comic book. Anything else to add?
And I'll be at busy in Vampire World.
AKA
which is a
castle.
Separate world that I did verify.
It's just the castle. We'll just be honest. But we'll still have a new episode, of course. It just won't be live. Other than that, we will see you next time as we continue to unearth more obscure media only on Obscurity Now. See you next time.
You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links. If that's what you're into, I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.